Hello there, my name's Michael Maynard. Now, the lock that you are currently not looking at, the lock that's hidden underneath this piece of paper, is a lock that arrived in the post a couple of days ago, and honest to God, it is the most exciting lock I have ever owned. It is the coolest lock I'm ever going to own. It's a lock I'm never, ever, ever going to be able to pick. And it's a lock that has got a huge amount of mystique and legend and all kinds of stories around it really. There's a lot of misinformation about this lock too. So what is it? Well, it is my own little part of the Cold War. This is, believe it or not guys, a Chubb Manifoil 4. There we go, you can see the dial there, it says Mark 4 Manifoil. Manifoil is a little bit of a word game, a kind of a joke in the way that English people often do. Manipulation foiling, so it's a lock that's designed to foil manipulation. And this lock is a lock with a long and distinguished history, and like I said, it's part of the Cold War, as much as, you know, like a Vulcan bomber or a John le Carré spy novel. This lock is a bona fide part of that. Now, my winter project is going to be to reassemble this bucket of bolts, and I swear to God, this twist of brown paper with all the parts in a heap and you know, filthy. I mean, if I just zoom in a second, you'll see that there's literally bits of wood and sawdust and dirt and crap, and if I show you the wheel pack here, it just makes you want to cry, you know. There's just filth in there from the ages. But this thing is my winter project, and I am going to learn how to reassemble it, and I'm going to learn how it works. But like I said, I will never ever be able to manipulate this lock. Now, the reason for that is that it was designed over the period of about 15 years. It went through several iterations to get to the Mark IV version. Specifically for the Ministry of Defence in the UK, so it's called a ministry lock. These locks and locks like them that are ex-MOD are called ministry locks. And without wanting to glamorise the thing, it literally was designed to stop Russian spies from stealing UK secrets. That really is how this thing worked. And they went to incredible lengths with this thing, okay? And just as an example of that, this part here, which fits around the side of the wheel pack here, and then this little plastic, I think probably Bakelite actually, but we'll look at that later, this little plastic section with this piece of metal here, these are lead, right? And that stops you x-raying the lock to see what's in there. Now, as a lock manufacturer, you don't put lead inserts into things unless somebody has already tried to x-ray one of your previous locks. So this was kind of part of an arms race between the guys making the locks and the bad guys trying to get into the locks. Now, there are, again, I freely admit, a bucket of other parts here whose functions, honestly, yet I don't understand. And part of the reason for that is that it is very, very difficult to get accurate information about the Manifoil lock. And Chubb, who was ended up as the manufacturer of these, we'll talk about that in a moment, don't release things like service manuals or specification sheets or anything like that. Partially because a lot of these things are still in service, but also partially because Chubb aren't stupid. And my guess is that they have other locks. This one was built in 1969, but my guess is that they have other locks that are derivatives of these, which are still in service. So they don't want to tell you how this thing works and the principles behind it, or at least any more than they can have to, because they might compromise their current locks. Now let's talk about the history of this. If you look really closely under these stickers. Now, incidentally, these stickers are from the 1990s, so these are service labels from 96 and 98 respectively. I'm going to take these off later because they're not original, and when I restore this I really don't want those on there. But if you guys have a look here, you'll just see the edge of an M and then limited. Now under there are also going to be the letters C and an AND, so C and M limited, 1969. That is because this lock was originally designed by a firm called Chatwood Milner. Now Chatwood Milner was formed in 1956. They made a few locks. They principally made safes and bank vaults, in fact. And they were bought out by Chubb in 1959, so as an entity, Chatwood Milner only lasted 3 years. But they made the original version of this in the early 50s, and it was a thing called the Manifoil keyless. It went through several iterations, so it was the Manifoil 2, it was upgraded in the late 50s. In the early 60s they had the Mark III version of that, and then by the late 60s they had the Mark IV, which is this one. And as I say, my one is dated 1969. Other guys have got them dated into the early 1970s, and I'm really sorry, I cannot tell you when the last one of these was made. I assume they're no longer made, but I really honestly don't know when the production run of these things ended. So that is my gorgeous old Manifoil Mark IV. What I'm going to do, like I said, is use this as a winter project. I am going to clean this thing up. I'm going to figure out which parts I've got and which parts I'm missing, and I know already that I'm missing a spline key, so there should be a little brass key that fits in here to hold these parts together. I don't have that, so we're going to figure out what we're missing. We're going to clean this up. I'm going to learn a shitload about these locks as we go. And what I thought I'd do is keep a video diary of this process, and you're watching part 1 of that now, obviously. And by the end of the winter, I should have a fully restored, fully functioning Manifoil 4, and both you guys and I should have learned something in the process. So, there we go, guys. Beautiful old lock. I'm really loving the fact that I own this thing, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge of refurbishing it, and I invite you to join me while we do so. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Michael Maynard.